shattering of worlds has created for many the lived experience of facing at least two directions, towards a home that is no longer here and a home that has not yet arrived. Not quite one and not yet the other. In the wake of this shattering, the capacity for speech falters as signifiers are perpetually torn from their signifieds. Irish is my native language and a language I do not speak. My grandmother could famously say only one sentence in Irish, which is Cé sin, sé sin Mulligan, or who is that? That is Mulligan. This is a common experience for many in Ireland, given that language was heavily vilified during the colonial period. It represents a part of my identity, a world that I cannot access. Scattered between two names, Onunulain is Anam Dum, In Nolan is my name. The words appear as flashes, caught in the throat, their meanings and connections scattered like unsignifiable wounds in the landscape of memory. To accept this inheritance can be, for some, to accept the conditions of one's own disappearance. Every refusal, however, implies a twist away from one line and effacing something else. There needs to be a countermeasure. Around the oak of power, the ivy of song had lovingly twined itself, and when the former was violently torn from the land, the latter was flung upon the world to float like a weed upon every wind. This is a quote from Edward Hayes's book, The Ballads of Ireland, published in 1855, responding to the image of Ireland as a place without culture or history. And yet, as he says, where the colonialists had paintings, cathedrals, palaces, symphonies, the Irish had storytelling, poetry, music, and song. The Sean Nós is one of the most old forms of sung poetry in Ireland. Its melismas meandering along the rivers that permeate the island, tracing out histories that emerge from the point where things slip, from the mouth to the river, to the sea, to the desert. A trace of people's departures, arrivals, and resilience in the face of perpetual shattering. Gathering on disturbed ground, the voice that arriving from a place where emotion is imagined as seizing upon you, trembles with the world, guided by a pulse that does not regulate but responds. Seeking a hum of potentiality that emerges from entangled bodies, to move with the Sean Nós, we need to stray to its beat. The only question is, where to begin? I remember sitting on an electricity box one night at the edge of a field, next to the river, near the house, exhausted. My father was ill, and how, as I sat there, I heard something approaching in the darkness, and how something straining my eyes to see. Listening to the steps, I saw a deer walking along the path. I remember I let out a shout at it, and it took off away into the night, into the direction of the Intel factory, where we used to go as teenagers, next to the canal where the famine migrants used to walk, where we used to walk with our dog Colleen, and where we used to watch the frogs spawn every summer in a natural spring. A sight appealing, some colonial dude tried to turn into a Roman bath in the 1800s, where my father brought water every day for the frogs when the spring dried up, like the waterfall where the salmon used to swim and where the houses used to be before they built the electricity lamp, or where Paddy Burke, the old man up the road, who told us as children all about the butterflies and how we shouldn't cut down the nettles because that's where they laid their eggs, or the trees behind my grandmother's house, which were cut down to give my neighbours sunlight, or how my grandmother used to tell me stories about the ghosts that lived in the house and how people in my family were visited in their dreams by relatives who had passed away, warning them of illness or death, or about the crisis apparitions described by Irish people who had emigrated during and after the famine, visited by images of deceased family members, and how, during the recession, a former dock worker called Tony and I would spend hours chatting at the bins behind the charity shop where we used to work on the government unemployment scheme, and talk about the connection between improvisational music and betting on horses. Gathered here between the fragments of shattered worlds, uncovering a shattering of tones and voices that overpopulate the measure, shimmering, oscillating, ornamenting and traversing the individual speaking position, a surplus of potentiality bubbling in the weight, at once relational and antagonistic, a resonance with which to create a propositional space on the negativity of what currently exists that somehow always seems to be leading you home.